Hi, folks. Welcome to organizational behavior. Yay. How you doing there, Andrew? Not a problem. So we'll just get started. I will talk overview about the course, talk about the assignments that are due, and then I will run through some of the content. We will be done before an hour. um, Real quick, let's just share our screen. Hop over here to the main course. So this is the main course here. Here's a few things here about starting strong in the course, a little bit about if you have a preferred name, how you can add that, or your name pronunciation, a little bit about Blackboard. As we scroll down on the top of the page, so when you log in, that'll be closed up like that. You scroll down, you'll see this syllabus and tab area, or content area, I should say. Here you'll see the syllabus, which gives you information about the course and the point values, the different assignments, things like that. Please take a look at that. We've got links to the textbook and the workbook as well, which you will need for some of the assignments. And then you've got information about our weekly meeting. Normally the weekly meeting for this class will be on Sunday morning. I think this one is set to 8 a.m. So if you like to get up bright and early, join me Sunday morning. Otherwise, I will post a recording of this and you can watch it at your leisure. Here's the contact information for me. My name is Gora Kishore Rader. Click down here. You've got, well, actually, we don't even need that stuff. Contact information is right here. Email, phone. Please use email, preferable to phone. I'll just say a few words about myself. I have a master's degree in social psychology and a master's degree in philosophy. I've been teaching at Hawking for almost 10 years now, or maybe 10 years. Maybe I think after I complete this year will be 10 years, 10 full years after the end of this semester. Here's a place where you can chat with other students, ask questions, things like that. Here is a resources content area. Links to tutoring, which is available in the library, also known as Davidson Hall. Accessibility Testing Center, link to the library, mental health resources. Most people in the world right now are struggling with anxiety and depression. The college has some resources to help you. They will not magically fix everything, but I would encourage you to contact them if you're experiencing any anxiety or depression or sadness or loneliness or just not thriving, and figure out how you can see if there's anything you can do to help you out. Over here in this other student resources tab, so we can close this one up. In this other student helpful resources, there's information about the papers, paper 1, paper 2, discussion and journal grading criteria, writing assignment rubric. Here is how to set up your paper according to APA format. So when we do have papers, they will be graded partially on the formatting. There's even a sample student paper template here, so be sure to look at that. And then here we have all the PowerPoint slides if you want to look at those. I actually have them set to hidden right now, but I didn't realize they were set to hidden, so I will make those available after we're done today. I won't do them all right now. Okay, scrolling down, we get to week 1. When you open up week 1, this is what you see. You'll see week 1 preparation. Always click on the preparation for the week, start there. It will tell you what chapters we need to read. Read chapters 1 and 2. It may also have a list of assignments, and it may have some videos to watch also. From there, you will also find the assignments. So we've got our discussion posts, we've got our journal assignment, and we've got our quizzes. And then some weeks we'll have a paper. There's only 2 papers due. So the journal assignment is due Wednesday night. The discussion assignments are due Thursday night, 11:59 p.m. And then these are due Saturday night. If there's a paper, the paper is due Friday night, 11:59 p.m. Instructions are there. Main thing is use proper spelling grammar. Don't treat these like text messages. Put proper time and energy into them. They are a significant portion of your grade. It's hard to do well if you don't get full credit on these assignments. It is recommended that you use in-text citations and include a reference, although I won't take points off for the journal and discussion assignments on that, but it is good practice and good habit to get into. Okay, any questions about that stuff so far? All right, without further ado, we will just kind of jump right into the topic. So let me pull that up. Give me a second. Just waiting for it to load. Then we got to make it bigger. Okay, let's see what we can get to. I don't know if we'll make it through all the chapters every week. Things might be a little different. I will try and make it through the PowerPoints each week. I don't know if I'll be able to or not. We'll see. Skip that. We will skip that. So we will skip some parts and we'll just sort of get right to the content. Okay, so we are talking about organizational behavior. Let's read our little summary here. The field of organizational behavior attempts to understand human behavior in organizational settings. We want to understand the organization, and we want to understand the individual organization interface. As illustrated here, these areas are highly interrelated. Thus, although it is possible to focus on only one of these areas at a time, a complete understanding of organizational behavior requires knowledge of all these three areas. So we want to know how organizations function. And oftentimes these are a corporation, but they could be a college, an educational institution, could be a governmental institution. We want to know about individuals, how individuals work. And we want to know about how individuals work in a particular setting, in a particular environment, right? Psychology is always about, and this is a psychology course, psychology is always about the interaction of the person with their environment. And ultimately, we're interested in a few main things in this topic, right? We want to know how we can get people, members, workers, employees to be more productive, to do better at their job. We want to figure out how we can make them happier so they do better. We want to figure out how we can get them to come to work more often and stay home less. We want to figure out how to make sure people don't quit, because when people quit a job, that's expensive and a pain in the ass for the organization, right? They have to spend money. A manager has to spend money training, hiring. That whole process is very costly. So organizations want to minimize turnover. They want to reduce absenteeism. That's the people coming in late or not coming into work. They want to increase employee productivity. They want to increase another thing called organizational citizenship behavior. So we want people doing a good job at their job, but there's other things we want people doing also, like when people come to work, you know, do they pick up a piece of trash in the hallway, even though it's maybe not their job? Or are they nice and friendly to people, even though it's technically their job, right? So there's lots of things we want people to do, even though it's not part of their job for a healthy functioning organization. So that's really all this field, maybe a few other little things. Hiring, firing, what's the best way to hire people? What's the best way to train people? So there's a few things, but ultimately it comes down to the bottom line. And a lot of it comes down to people feeling cared for, loved, valued, people having autonomy. There are some basic human needs that people have when they get those needs met. Obviously, feeling like they're being paid fairly. It's not all about money, but money does matter. They will perform better. Okay. Studying organizational behavior can help you become a better employee, a better manager, understand how people behave and why they do what they do, help you focus on developing a global mindset. Organizations that successfully implement OB principles have motivated, engaged employees whose goals align with the business strategy, strong leadership direction, and ultimately better bottom lines. Okay, so many of you are probably young in this course and maybe don't have a lot of experience with the corporate world or the world in general. So this course will also just serve as a kind of introduction to the business world. You'll learn a lot of terminology that if you do go into the corporate world, may be helpful or maybe just is useful to know anyways. All right, let's skip that. Okay. 1.2, the managerial context of OB. Basic management functions and organizational behavior. Management functions, planning, organizing, leading, controlling. Resources used by management, human, so employees, financial, physical, and informational. So organizations use these different resources, or managers within organizations use these resources to accomplish these main basic tasks. So if we utilize all our resources and we do planning, organizing, leading, and controlling well, that will lead to effective and efficient attainment of organizational goals, i.e. making money. Of course, there are nonprofit whose goals might be to, save lives and things like that. But most typically, we're talking about corporations. A little bit about the different functions of management. I don't feel like I need to read all those. I think fairly self-explanatory. Some critical management skills, so technical skills, skills necessary to accomplish a specific task. These could range from computer skills to being able to weld something. Interpersonal skills, ability to effectively communicate, understand, and motivate individuals and groups. Interpersonal skills are highly important. Strongly recommend you start working on your own interpersonal skills at a young age, because almost all good things in life come down to that. Conceptual skills, ability to think abstractly. Diagnostic skills, these are sort of two sides of the same coin, really sort of cognitive abilities. Ability to understand cause and effect relationships, recognize and optimal solutions, right, etc. Okay. Human Resources Management, or abbreviated HRM, the set of organizational activities directed at attracting, developing, and maintaining an effective workforce. So people that work in this area with organizations, they're usually part of the HR department, right? So if you go to college and you study organizational behavior and you get hired by an organization, you'll end up being a part of the human resource management team. Questions OB helps human resource managers answer: which applicants should be hired, which rewards will be more motivating. So those are not the only questions, but there's some. 1.3, strategic context of organizational behavior. So competitive advantage is an organization's edge over rivals in attracting customers and defending itself against competition, right? So an organization has to have some sort of advantage in order to survive in the marketplace, right? Maybe it's as simple as you're the only gas station in a particular town, and that's your competitive edge, and that's how you survive. Or maybe it's you have better prices, or maybe it's you have better customer service, or maybe you're the only firm in the world that knows this specific thing about how ChatGPT works, or whatever it might be. Here are some sources of competitive advantage: innovation, distribution, speed, convenience, first to market, cost, service, quality, branding. So all these things are ways that you can have an advantage over a different organization. Some different business strategies. Cost leadership, right? So this essentially means trying to be the lowest cost organization. Differentiation means developing a unique product or service, right? So Walmart could be an example of cost leadership, whereas Apple with the iPhone could be an example of differentiation. Specialization, you specialize in one particular thing and you're great at that, and people who are into that particular thing will always buy your product. Growth, some organizations are focused on growth, some organizations are focused on just sort of maintaining. Contextual perspectives on organizational behavior. Okay, so let's talk about the origin of this field. Originally called scientific management. First formal study was done in the 1890s. This study was abandoned after World War I. The goal of this was to maximize productivity. It led to monotonous, dehumanizing conditions. Not going to say that this has disappeared from the workplace. There are plenty of monotonous, dehumanizing conditions. Essentially, the development of this field coincided with the development of large-scale manufacturing. The auto industry was very big into this. Although, if we're being honest about the true history of America, slave owners were very scientific in the way in which they managed, quote unquote, slaves, and the way they had them work and pick, and demanding maximum productivity. So, but as a widespread field, with factory workers, auto factories, with the rise of the factory kind of economy, the scientific management became a thing. So the idea here is basically you get a person, you train them how to do one specific task, you teach them how to do it as effectively as possible, and you have them do nothing but that all day long because that's what they're good at and that's what they know how to do. The problem with that is people sorry, early in the course, I probably shouldn't be cursing already. People absolutely hate that. So nowadays, say you work at Chipotle and you have an 8-hour shift, you might spend 2 hours cleaning tables, you might spend 2 hours at the cash register, you might spend 2 hours making the burritos, and you might spend 2 hours in the back cooking, right? That's a little, it may not be technically as efficient. In theory, it's not as efficient, but in practice, it becomes more efficient because people are not absolutely bored out of their mind, just sitting behind a cash register, or just, making that burrito every day, all day, 8 hours. Okay, human relations movement is part of the origins of organizational behavior. It's inspired by the Hawthorne effect, viewed organizations as cooperative systems, treated workers' orientations, values, and feelings as important parts of organizational dynamics, create a new era of more humane, employee-centered management, and highlighted the importance of people to organizational success. Okay, so really you can think about the field of organizational behavior as kind of a tug of war between these two things, scientific management and human relations. And how do you kind of find that sweet spot to where you're getting people to do the task efficiently, but you're also dealing with the human side of things in the best way possible to get the best result for the organization? And a lot of times those things are in tension. Yes, people would be happier if you doubled their salary. Maybe you can't double their salary, right? Because that's not feasible for you to double everyone's salary. Yes, people would be happy with a 4-day work shift, 4-hour work shift, right? But maybe that's not feasible. So what are the ways in which you can sort of give people what they need on a human level, but also optimize other aspects? And depending on the job, depending on the organization, you're going to come to different answers. And some organizations are just like, screw it, we're not going to try and optimize your feelings at all. We're just going to pay you minimum wage and we'll rehire someone else. And that's a strategy, That's not a very moral one, but it can be a useful business strategy. Organizations as open systems. A system is an interrelated set of elements that functions as a whole. Inputs are combined or transformed by managers into outputs from the system. So systems thinking, trying to understand organizations as a kind of system of inputs and outputs. The value of this perspective, it underscores the importance of the organization's environment, conceptualizes the flow and interaction of various elements of the organization. So inputs could be material inputs, human inputs, financial inputs, information inputs. You've got some sort of technology. So the simplest way to understand this is like, we turn sand into glass, right? We take sand and when we do something, we heat it up and we turn it into glass or whatever it might be, raw natural gas into fuel that can be used. But it could also be information, right? We take information from all these different companies and we analyze it. We have a team of people that analyzes that information, transforms it into something useful, and we provide service to investors, right? So once you sort of have this sort of picture, then you can look at, okay, how are we getting the information, or how are we getting our natural gas, or how are we getting the sand? What are we doing to transform those things? How are we putting it out into the world? And you can kind of break it down in that way to try and understand how you can optimize things. Another sort of broad picture, big picture understanding of organizational behavior is situational and universal models. Situational perspective recognizes that most organizational situations and outcomes are influenced by other variables. So you always have to consider things like the culture of your employees, the culture of the particular place you're doing business, the macroeconomics, right? What are the interest rates? What are the laws around a certain issue in a given place? Universal model is more focusing on direct cause and effect linkages. But, complexity of human behavior makes universal conclusions virtually impossible. So we really want to focus more on a situational perspective rather than a universal. Otherwise, we're probably going to be missing something. Okay, I think we can jump ahead. Interactionism is just this trying to understand the perspective of how people and situations interact continuously all the time. People and situations are always interacting, right? A person may be great and happy and smiley with customers in the first hour of their shift, but 7 hours later in the last hour, are they going to be just as perky and chipper? Probably not. What can we do to help them? What can we do as an organization to make it so that people are able to offer good customer service from the beginning of their shift to the end? How many breaks do they need? What can we provide some service so they have a nice place to go for their breaks? Things like that. 1.5, managing for effectiveness. Manager's goals includes, these are essentially many of the things that we talked about at the beginning: enhancing certain behaviors and attitudes, promoting organizational citizenship, minimizing dysfunctional behaviors, driving strategic execution. Enhancing individual and team performance, right? So productivity is a narrow measure of efficiency, sort of number of products or services created. Obviously, we always want to look at that. Performance is a broader concept made up of this sort of baseline productivity plus any other factors that we think are important. So productivity is just like, how many burgers are we selling, or how many trucks are we selling? Performance is how many trucks are we selling, but also how satisfied are people with our product? Commitment, the degree to which an employee feels a true member of the organization. The more you can increase employee commitment, because if someone's committed, they're going to do a lot of good things naturally. How do we enhance employee engagement and commitment? Employee engagement is the extent to which employees understand and embrace their role in the organization. Job satisfaction or dissatisfaction is very important. It's influenced by a lot of factors: individual needs and aspirations, what's going on in the organization, how much is someone getting paid, are people gossiping, is their manager a jerk to them, are they expected to do too much, do they feel like they have opportunities and room for growth, are there performance incentives? There's all kinds of things, and some people might find one job highly satisfying, other people might not, right? So it's not just about the factors, but also the relationship between the individual to these different factors. Organizational commitment, sense of organizational membership, overlooking minor dissatisfactions, right? So the more committed people are, the more engaged they are, the more satisfied they are. Those are going to lead to good things for any organization. Conversely, the other side, if those things are not present, the organization is probably failing. Okay, how do we promote organizational citizenship behaviors? So here are some examples of organizational citizenship behaviors. Willingness to train new hires. Maybe you take a new person under your wing and you show them things. Work late or work overtime, good attendance, representing the organization well. Right? Minimizing dysfunctional behaviors, absenteeism, basically calling off work, not showing up, turnover, quitting, theft or sabotage, harassment, bullying, violence. political behavior, gossiping, rumors, trying to get people fired or trying to, get someone promoted over someone else. People don't like that stuff. Rudeness, incivility, of course, violence. So we want, none of this stuff is good. We all want less of that. Any organization wants less of that. And then we get to strategic execution. What does that mean? That is the degree to which managers and their employees understand and carry out the actions needed to achieve strategic goals. So the way a modern organization works is you have kind of the executive management. The executive management says, well, look, these are our goals for the upcoming year. These are our goals for the upcoming quarter. We want to increase profits by this much, or we want to do X, Y, and Z. And then the people below them, they're like, okay, in order to meet this strategic goal, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And that means I need to get my people on my team to be doing X, Y, and Z, right? And if you have good relationships with them and if you have good incentives, hopefully you can get them to do that. And there's different strategies, and we'll talk about leadership and management as the course goes on, right? But that's essentially a big part of, managing, and big part of being part of an organization is the organization has goals. A lot of times the goals are just profit, but of course, how do you get to that goal of profit is the question. Okay, information is very important. Common sense and intuition are often wrong. One thing doesn't necessarily lead to the other. People are satisfied are not necessarily more productive. Rewards don't necessarily motivate people, right? Just giving people more money. Someone could be making a ton of money, but if they hate their job, they're probably not going to do a good job, right? Whereas someone might love their job, even though they're not making a lot of money, they're going to put extra time into it. Organizational behavior tries to use the scientific method that's used in other psychological disciplines. We measure things, we create studies, we measure, we use statistics to analyze the results. We come up with theory, we have an hypothesis, we specify what we expect to happen, we test it with an independent variable and a dependent variable. This is the measure that so a dependent variable might be absenteeism. The deep independent variable is how much time off people get, right? So we find out, so when we look, does giving people an extra 2 days a year or 5 days a year, does that reduce absenteeism and make things better, right? So the number of days people get for time off would be the independent variable. Here's their example. An experiment to determine the effect of employee wages on employee satisfaction. Wages are the independent variable, satisfaction is the dependent variable. All right, theory, hypothesis, collect data, verify, new theory, new hypothesis, more data, verify. So this is what researchers in the field of organizational behavior do. Sometimes people within a specific organization need to test out theories and find out what works for a specific organization. So large companies, they have their own research that they do in-house to try and figure out what the best way to manage their employees are for their goals. Okay, a little bit about scientific research. Correlation the big thing here is that correlation does not equal causation. So if we have our two variables, x and y, x could cause y. So if we find that x and y tend to go together, right? So there's going to be a correlation between being taller and being a man, right? Meaning on average, men are taller than women. So that's X and Y. There's a correlation between gender and height. But that doesn't mean that every man is taller than every woman, right? So correlation is a bit tricky. Then we get into questions like, is it the gender? Is it specifically, the XY chromosome that's doing it? Or maybe it has some more to do with something like testosterone, right? So it's not so much and so a better example would be, you could look at like aggression or body hair or something like that. So it's not so much that gender is going to cause it, but maybe it's a specific hormone like testosterone that's going to cause something like that, right? So the causal relationship, digging in and trying to figure out what's actually causing what becomes really important when we're doing psychological research. A meta-analysis is when we use statistics to analyze the result of lots of different studies. So ultimately, an individual researcher does one study, they try and publish it. Hopefully they can get their research published. More researchers do research on the topic. Eventually there's enough studies, enough research on a topic to analyze the results of all those studies. And that's called a meta-analysis. So this is correlations are often plotted. So if you see a graph that looks like this would be a correlation 0. The dots are essentially random. This is a perfect correlation of 1 to 1. So positive correlation means as the dot here, as each observation is further out on the x-axis, like this dot here, it's at about 93. It's about 90, whatever, 3 over there. So this dot here, it's further along on the x-axis. It's also further along on the y-axis. Look, here we have something that is, let me find an example. Oh, all right. Here, this is a negative correlation. The further we go on the x-axis, the lower the value is on the y-axis, right? This is a low y value, but a high x value. X is like 115, but y is only like 84. Whereas here, x is like 82, but on the y value, it's 115. More likely we get correlations like this. There's a slight positive correlation or a slight negative correlation in psychology. A common example, a good example to use is coffee and wine. There were a lot of studies showing that wine had a positive correlation with health. Turns out that correlation did not equal causation in that case. Alcohol, no matter the type, no matter the amount, is always bad for you. There were other factors influencing that result. It does turn out that coffee is actually good for you. There's a real connection there, an actual causal relationship between coffee and health, or tea. Drink coffee or tea. Both are good for your health. Okay. All right, last section, framework of the book. So this is a useful chart to sort of think about. This is essentially what we're interested in, this stuff right here. What makes managers and organizations more effective? We're interested in enhancing performance behaviors. We're interested in enhancing commitment and engagement. We're interested in promoting citizenship behaviors. And we're interested in minimizing dysfunctional behaviors. Everything else is all about how it influences those things, right? So you can look at groups and teams, the relationship between groups and teams in those questions, organizational characteristics, the environment, how does the environment affect these things? Individuals and what they do, how does that affect those things? And how does leadership affect these things? And every one of these 4 boxes here, right? So we've got this inner circle of things we're interested in. These 4 things affect our inner circle, and then the environment affects these 4 things. So we're interested in all these relationships. Okay. Whew, we are going fast and furious. We only got an hour. Any questions for on any of that? Okay, so for this week, since it's the first week, I'm just going to go through that one chapter for you guys. Chapter 2 is called The Changing Environment of Organizations. It's about diversity and globalization and cross-cultural differences and technology and how those things might affect organizations. So you all can take a look at that on your own. Okay, so we can stop sharing our screen. All right, so get started on that. Remember, there's the weekly journal is due on Wednesday. You've got your discussion posts due Thursday, and then your quizzes for this week are due Friday. As always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. All right, so I will stop the recording now.